If your team isn't performing, even though you've given them clear instructions, the answer to this problem is probably not found in creating even more SOPs and repeating what you've already said. See, for a lot of us founders, we don't recognize that when it comes to leading people, it's not so much about what we say, even though, don't get me wrong, this is really important, but it's more about who we are being, what we are demonstrating. Now, think about children, because this is a perfect example for that. You can tell a young child to not be on their phone, to not be on your phone, right? Being on your phone is really unhealthy. But then they see you standing in the corner on your phone and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling while, maybe you're having a conversation with your wife. Guess what they're going to learn? They're going to learn a couple things. First of all, they're going to learn what you say is not really what you mean. And they also learn that it's okay to say one thing but then do another, which actually means that you're lying, essentially. And so that creates a massive level of confusion. And the really, really difficult thing with that is most employees will never speak up. They will never tell you that. They're just going to end up leaving, or you're going to end up firing them because they're not performing to your liking. And isn't that crazy? You're investing time, energy, and money into a person, maybe even training them. And then for some invisible reason, they end up leaving or not performing, and you just keep repeating the cycle. This is so incredibly stressful. So, as leaders, to get our teams to perform, we have to embody what we are asking them. Now, does that mean that you have to, embody coding because you have a coder and you have no clue what it means to code? No, of course not. We're not talking about the specific skills, but what I mean is, if you want your team to speak up and to communicate openly and to feel safe around making a mistake, then how do they best learn that? They won't just learn it by you writing a bunch of values on your wall or sending that out in an email or once a week having a meeting where you talk about how important those values are. No, they have to see it in you. So what they have to see is you're going to have uncomfortable conversations with them. You're going to have to own up. You're going to have to say things like, hey, I realized that I never gave you clear instructions and we never had a one-on-one on this particular topic. And I've been expecting of you to perform and you haven't been able to do that. Now that's on me. That doesn't mean that you have to blame yourself or hit yourself in the face. No, you just take responsibility like a mature human being. And that is when you're demonstrating the values. That's when your word matches your action. What about making a mistake? Well, if you're making a mistake, own up to it, but own up to it publicly in front of your employees, because they'll be like, damn, okay, this is uncomfortable, but this guy is leading through the discomfort. He really means what he said in the first time when he hired me, where he said, we encourage you to make mistakes, not blindly, willingly say, oh, I'm going to mess things up. No, but if you're making a mistake, learn from it and be open about it. Talk about it with the colleagues. Talk about it with me. That creates an environment of psychological safety where people feel like, hey, I can take a risk and I'm not going to be punished for it. I'll be rewarded for it. Now, does that mean a guy makes the same mistake 5 times, even though you've had a conversation with them, you've demonstrated it, and then you just keep, oh, well, whatever, No, of course not. There are boundaries. And that leads me to the next thing is, the actual bottleneck that I see in teams not performing despite clear instructions is the leader, the founder, struggling with people pleasing. And people pleasing really means I will say and do things in order for you to like me, in order for me to feel safe around you. But that's the problem. As leaders, we are not here to be liked. We're here to be respected. We're here to be followed. And whether someone likes it or not is actually a bonus. What I've seen in my experiences, most people end up liking you even more because you show up in a space of truth and you show up in a space of accountability. See, I see this so often with founders. They end up hiring a bunch of people and then they micromanage and then they build these quiet resentments. They become passive aggressive because they're not giving the people the space and the reflections for them to perform properly. See, if you're the leader and someone on your team isn't doing what they said they want to do, you got to have a conversation with them sooner than later. And that is probably going to feel uncomfortable for you. You're going to have to call them forth or call them out on their shit. It's like, hey, Nancy, I noticed that despite me saying, despite us having a conversation about this, the task is still not being completed in the time that you agreed to. What's going on? Right? It may feel like you're about to like punch them into a corner, but it's often just some made up stuff that we carry in our minds. I have a client who struggled to break through the 30K mark and who was constantly facing churns in his company. And it went so far that a guy that he was working with somehow built into his mind that he would become his co-founder. And he talks to me, my client, he says, dude, I have no idea how this guy made up in his mind that he would become my co-founder. But whenever I'm in meetings, he's sort of like undermining me. He's like cutting me off. He's like showing up as if he, like has the decision-making power that I have as the founder. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And what are you doing about it? Well, nothing really. I get really upset and angry on my own. And then I'm super kind and nice to him. I said, dude, that's a red flag. The reason he's doing that is because you're tolerating it. Is like the toddler that can throw a tantrum without any consequences, just anywhere, and mommy and daddy comes like, hey, that's okay, that's okay, just scream as loud as you want, no matter where we are. It's like you're disempowering the child, and in the leadership realm, you're disempowering your employee because they think they can just do whatever they want. So, in conclusion, the reason I see teams not performing despite clear instructions is twofold. One is they're living in an environment where they don't feel safe to express themselves and to make mistakes. And two, they don't have a leader who embodies leadership, who's playing the people pleaser, who's trying to get liked. Those are the two true bottlenecks that if you actually address them and fix them, you're going to have a culture of performance around you that is based in trust, that is based in courage, and that is based in excellence. And with that, you will create long-term success. My client broke through the 50K barrier just recently, and now he's off to the 100K barrier per month as his next focus. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it interesting, leave me a comment below. Leave me a question. Maybe there's something that you're dealing with, but you're not quite sure. And if you like this kind of content, then hit the subscribe button on my channel and you will get a lot more of these videos. And with that, we are complete today, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.